please join me in rising for a moment of silence and the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Granquist.
Here.
Arms.
Here.
Webb.
Here.
McCarthy.
Here.
Murin.
Here.
Snorton.
Here.
Clausen.
Here.
Hildebrand.
Here.
Okay, with that, I would look for a motion to approve the consent agenda with one change. There's been a citizen's request to remove item number 14 and place it on the full agenda.
So move. Second.
Motion second. If no discussion, please vote.
All council members present voting in the affirmative. Motion carries.
Okay, item number 6 would look for a motion to approve the full agenda with a couple changes. We do have a request from the applicant in relation to items 22 and 23 saying he'd like to reschedule the public hearing for a later date and will coordinate with city staff to reschedule the hearing. So would look for a motion to approve the full agenda with those changes, the removal of items 22 and 23.
I'll make a motion to approve the full agenda minus items 22 and 23.
Second.
Motion second. If no discussion, please vote.
All council members present voting in the affirmative. Motion carries.
Okay, that takes us then to item number 14, formerly on the consent agenda. I would look for a motion to consider Resolution 2024-45 to approve a grant application to the Land and Water Conservation Fund of the Nebraska Game and Parks Commission in the amount of $514,036.50 to build an adult league softball field at Tahazuka Park.
I'll make a motion for Resolution 2024-45.
Second.
Motion second, and for some background on this, we'll hear from Nate Powell, our Parks and Rec Director. Nate.
I'll get it. There you go.
All right, thank you. Mayor and council, before you, here's the LWCF grant application. We actually did apply for this same grant last year. The council moved that forward. We got denied on a technicality, so we had to come back and apply for it again this year. This is this is for the adult softball complex north of the existing softball complex there in fields 1, 2, and 3. The budgeted amount is $430,000. We can move a few projects around and bring that up to the $514,000 for a total project cost of $1,028,073.60. This is to create three 300-foot softball fields north of 1, 2, and 3. Again, these are adult league and for baseball, youth baseball as well. We can hold adult tournaments and also girls tournaments at the same time with 2 complexes as we move that direction. So we'll be able to hold more than one at a time and have adjacent complexes for more fields, also to bring more people into town. This also includes the spectator area and lights, so it gets all the infrastructure set up for a 3-field complex on the north side. If there's any other questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Any questions? Thank you, Nate, for that background. Can you tell us a little bit about what the compulsion was to pursue this grant? The determination of the need and capacity of what's existing, I assume, led you to look at ways to find funding for additional fields that are needed?
Yeah, we have, basically what we have out there is we have 5 fields. 2 of them can't be used for adults, so it puts it only 3 fields that are available for adult league and also for fast pitch. Everybody wants to be on the same 3 fields. When you have that situation, you overuse your fields and it's very hard to maintain it at that level for long term. So we get a lot of complaints about the pitching mounds and the batters boxes, and it's hard to maintain that when you're consistently on those fields. Also, the girls' fast pitch have to move. They can't, if there's two competing tournaments, they're the ones that have to move to smaller fields, away from the restrooms, away from concessions, and now away from the team lockers that they have available to them. And so when you do that, and the reason why is because it's the only fields that the adult league can play on. There is no others. They can't go to field 4, they can't go to field 5 or A and B. They have to play on those 3 fields. So there's no way to have a tournament, a girls' tournament there, if they're playing and have something scheduled. So we're building a 3-field complex. Eventually, that'll help us close down field 5 into something else, maybe soccer fields or something more usable. It's our least used field. It's only get used 3% of the time. So we're watering it and taking care of it, but we can't even use it. And so that's an issue. We're putting a lot of money into it, and what we need is another complex. And that's what brought this forward over a year ago.
Nate, just as a reminder, how many tournaments are you guys having a year out there?
I really can't answer that question right offhand. We play, hundreds of games on those fields every year. So games and tournaments are different because tournaments are from out of town, and a lot of the girls' fast pitch teams, particularly the schools, they bring out of town teams every time they play for at the college level. So I couldn't give you an exact answer on that right now.
Safe to say on those tournament weekends, we're limited in what we can hold at this point because of capacity.
Yep. The demand is there. We have consistent requests to have the fields at the same time for tournaments.
The adult league has been pretty vocal too about maintaining their space and updating and modernizing, correct?
That's correct, yeah.
Nate, was this a matching grant?
This is a 50% matching grant.
Where were we pulling funds for that?
We Keno dollars.
Keno dollars? So roughly
The
600?
514,000. Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
The grant is up to 600,000.
Okay.
And this is a grant that's been used before. Well, we've applied for it once for this use, but it's not uncommon for this grant to be used for athletic fields like this.
That's correct, yep.
Okay. All right. Any other questions?
Yeah,
Okay.
right.
Thank you. Any other discussion on this or input?
Jim McKenzie. First of all, I applaud the city for applying for a grant for these recreation projects. It certainly reduces the burden on the taxpayer. I did have a question on this one as I was looking at the budget, and Nate cleared up the discrepancy with what was in the budget for this particular project, but at the same time I noticed that the total amount of Keno funds budgeted to be spent in the coming fiscal year 24-25 was $888,598, and yet looking at today's agenda item number 8, it appears we're only bringing in Keno funds of about $600,000 per year. So I'm just kind of curious how that amount of $888,000 as far as expenditures next year computes to what we normally see as far as $600,000 a year in revenue.
The Keno varies, the amount we're spending from Keno varies, and we may be saving money up for a bigger project and spending more in some years than we get, which would draw down the balance in that Keno fund. And in other years, we're spending less and building that back up.
Okay, thank you. I mean, it's about 150% of what our normal revenue is, so I'm just curious on that.
Yes, and that's not unusual that we will spend more than we bring in a particular year. We just have to build that up before, and then we spend it down and then build it up again.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else wish to comment?
Randy, currently what do we have in that Keno fund?
Oh, I'd have to take a look. Hang on just a minute.
Nate, would this be new backstops, scoreboards, everything?
Yep, so this would get us our spectators area that you would see on field 1, 2, 3, that size. It would get us lights, field irrigation, fencing, backstop. Yep.
So 3 fields.
No, this would be the first of 3 fields. Yeah, we would have to go out and we want to raise some money for the other fields. I think if we step up and we get the adult league and the fast pitch involved, and I think we can raise some money.
Nate, while you're up there, and while Randy's looking at, I'll just kind of tag on to that question. So those 3 fields that are there now, 1, 2, and 3, at center field, looks like you replaced the fencing and the backstop. That looks really, really nice there now. Is there any funds to do those other 2 fields?
Yep, the Kohler donation
Yep.
is gonna replace fields 1 and 3 as well.
Okay.
We're doing them in the fall. We're doing one at a time because staff are installing them to save some money. And plus, we can only handle one at a time. But we also don't want to have fields down during the season because they're just overused right now. So we don't want to interrupt the programs that are happening there.
So another one will be this fall.
This fall and the last one next fall,
Good.
unless we can squeeze it in the spring if weather permits. Yep.
Thanks.
Thank you, Nate.
I pulled the Keno projections we had in the agenda packet for the council retreat that got canceled. We're projecting to have a balance at the end of 2024 of $577,259. And then any of the revenue that we're going to be getting in will fund the expenses we're talking about.
Okay. Thank you, Randy. Any other questions or discussions on this? Okay, if not, please vote.
All council members present voting in the affirmative, Resolution 2024-45 is adopted.
Okay, that takes us to item 20 on the council agenda under public hearings and related action. I will open this public hearing at the request of Foundry Apartments LLC for the Foundry Apartment Complex. Final plan development on property addressed as 2045 West Paswalk Avenue. And to kick off the hearing, we'll ask for some background from Val Grimes, our city planner.
All right. Thank you. So yes, what's in the packet is the final plan development for the Foundry Apartments. The preliminary was before council here about a month or so ago. So they are still asking for multiple buildings on one lot. But what was not seen on the preliminary, now that they got into the final layout of these, they are also asking for a 17-foot deep instead of a 19-foot standard depth parking lot, and then using 2 feet of the 6-foot sidewalk in front as overhang. And this 2-foot overhang still allows the 4-foot ADA access on the sidewalks along the buildings. Along with what they're requesting for reliefs, as this is an ordinance, there's 3 readings to it. We would request that this be passed on first reading only tonight because what they came back with was something a little different. They didn't realize that the plat filed May of last year had a 10-foot easement, kind of along, I'm going to call it the north edge of it. And so their garages, you'll see, are just 7 feet away from there, like they were a side yard setback. And so they are going and asking the utility companies for to put a 5-foot easement on there and release that other 5 foot of the 10 so that they can scooch those garages in there a little farther. But they did not hear from all of the utility companies before this was put on the council, and since it's a public hearing, we needed to keep it on. They are planning on having that on the council hopefully next time. Just because of the first reading only request is just in case they can't get that last utility company to say okay to that easement release, they might have to tweak the layout just a little bit. So I didn't want you guys signing Mylars tonight on something and get filed on something that may need to be tweaked. So that's the reason for the request for first reading only. And if you have any questions on the general plan.
if it got passed on first and it changed, maybe this is a question for, I don't know, one of you two girls, but if there was changes, is it something that we can make an amendment on for second reading, or do we start all over?
I would think that's minor enough. It's just 3 feet of scooching if they need to. So it's not necessarily changing the layout, the parking, how many units you can fit on there. That's really what the PD looks at, is units, parking spaces, and that sort of thing.
Thank you.
Val, how far of a stretch on the sidewalk is that request to change the width, the overhang?
So normally we'd ask for a 5-foot sidewalk. They're gonna give a 6, and a lot of times, unless you have a curb bumper there to keep it away, you're probably gonna overhang anyway a little bit.
This is on new sidewalk that would be constructed, or existing, yeah, new. Okay.
New for the interior
Okay.
sidewalks, kind of on between the parking lot and the building, yeah.
Okay. Any other questions for Val? This is a public hearing, so anyone wishing to comment can do so now. Okay. Hearing no one, I will close the hearing, but first ask for a planning commission report, please.
On July 16th, 2024, the Norfolk Planning Commission reviewed the final plan development for the Foundry Apartment Complex located at 2045 West Paswalk Avenue. Planning Commission recommends approval with a 7-0 vote.
Okay, with that, I will close the hearing and proceed to item 21 and look for a motion to consider ordinance number 5893 approving the Foundry Apartment Complex final plan development.
I'll make a motion for consideration of ordinance number 5893.
Second.
Motion second, any discussion? If not, short title, please.
An ordinance of the City of Norfolk, Madison County, Nebraska, amending the zoning district map of the City of Norfolk, Nebraska, providing this ordinance shall be in full force and effect, and providing for the publication of this ordinance in pamphlet form.
Please vote.
Waiting on 2 more yet. 1 more. There we go. All council members present voting in the affirmative. Ordinance number 5893 carries on first reading.
Okay, takes us to our regular agenda, item 24. I would look for a motion to consider approval of amendment number 1 to the engineering services contract with Black & Veatch Corporation for the West Water Treatment Plant Improvements and New Collector Well 14 project for an amount not to exceed $34,857.
I'd make the motion.
Second.
Motion and second. For some background on this, Steve Ramus, our Public Works Director. Steve.
Mayor and Council, this is a contract amendment for Black & Veatch as a result of separating the 2 million gallon reservoir from the overall wastewater plant improvements and production well project. That project was originally scoped and contracted with Black & Veatch to be bid as one large project. We had conversation, I don't know what it was now, about 6 months ago, expressing an interest in moving that forward separate from the larger project. We weren't quite sure how the larger project was going to move forward. And so we separated that and obviously went out and bid that separately in its own bid package and awarded that project. This contract amendment would be actual expenses to Black & Veatch for the costs associated with that separate bid package and the bidding services for that package. $26,860 to prepare the bid package and $7,997 for the bidding services provided during the bidding process. I would be available to answer any questions you might have about that. Chad Roberts is here as well to answer any questions.
Hey, Steve, any questions? Okay, any public input on this? Okay. Hearing none, please vote.
All council members present voting in the affirmative, motion carries.
Item 25 would entertain a motion to consider approval of change order number 1 with Elkhorn Paving Construction Company Incorporated for the paving district number 521 Norfolk 140 project, resulting in a net increase of $42,319. Motion second. Again, Steve, some background on this, please.
Mayor, I'm going to let Anna, Assistant
sorry.
City Engineer, present
Anna,
numbers
please.
25 and 26 tonight.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm here to present the change order for our Norfolk 140 paving district. Historically, we've had in our contracts, we have the contractor use the foundation course that we stockpile out at the transfer station from other concrete repair projects that they bring out there. So we did not have enough stockpiled for the rest of the project, and so the contractor will be providing that foundation course. So that's what the increase of $42,319 is.
Okay, thank you, Anna. Any questions?
Can you state the location of that project?
The Norfolk 140 is out west, is be 42nd Street, west of the roundabout on Highway 275. So they're putting in a new street south of there, Madison Avenue, and then a new street going back up north. And I'm trying to remember what number that street is. I think that'd be 45th maybe. So this is for that new development out there where they're putting that Nebraska machinery.
So when someone bids this, typically, are they expecting the city to provide the crushed concrete in these bids?
Yes.
Okay.
We either state in the bid documents it's contractor furnished, or we'll state that it's city furnished if we're going to provide that. This is also, this cost would be assessed back to the developer as well.
Okay. Anything else? Thank you, Anna. Any public input on this? Okay. If no further discussion, please vote.
All council members present voting in the affirmative, motion carries.
Item 26 would look for a motion to consider approval of change order number 1 with Elkhorn Paving Construction Company for the concrete repair project 2024, resulting in a net increase of $13,878.45.
I'll make a motion to approve change order number 1 with Elkhorn Paving.
Second.
Motion and second, and Anna, once again, some background on this, please.
Thank you. So this is for our concrete repair project, our 2024 repair project. We have a few different areas around town. We're taking out the damaged concrete panels and replacing them. So with this, it's kind of the same situation with the crushed concrete foundation course. It was going to be city furnished. There is quantity down there. It needs to be crushed. So a lot of this cost is to crush that concrete that people have been hauling in. Also in this change order is some decrease in a section of concrete repairs that we have already completed, and there was some cost savings in that section. So the addition of the crushed concrete and then some finalizing quantities in that section.
So this is just concrete that's brought in, old concrete that needs to be crushed, is that what you're saying?
Correct. So like on this contract here for our concrete repairs, they'll take out the concrete that they're gonna be replacing, they haul it down to the transfer station, stockpile it, and then they'll bring in a crusher every, I don't know, 6 months or whenever the pile gets big enough and crush it, and then then we'll have that stockpile of crushed concrete.
Never asked this. What do you guys end up doing with all the, use it in-house, leave the crushed concrete and use it in-house? Okay.
Well, we use it in-house or projects like this, you know, city furnish. If the city furnishes the crushed concrete foundation course, then we put it back in these jobs.
Gotcha.
Did we anticipate this when the bidding was taking place, that we could run short on crushed concrete?
Did not, there's a few different projects kind of, getting crushed concrete out of there.
Yeah, that's correct. No, we didn't. The other thing this does is, so this will crush 100% of all the concrete that's coming out of our 23-24 concrete repair. That would be a fairly large pile, and so this will reestablish our stockpile out there. We do sell that when we do use that and furnish that. We sell that at about double what it cost us to crush. So our cost is about $8 a ton to crush it, and we sell it for I think 15 bucks a ton on our projects.
Okay, any further questions? All right, thank you, Anna.
Thank you.
Any public comment on this? Okay, if no further discussion, please vote.
All council members present voting in the affirmative, motion carries.
Item 27 would look for a motion to consider approval of change order number 1 with DN Tanks LLC, doing business as DN Tanks of Nebraska LLC, for the 2 million gallon treated water storage tank project, resulting in a net increase of $37,986.
I'll make a motion for consideration of approval.
Second.
Motion second, and Steve, some background on this, please.
Mayor and council, thank you. This is a change order for the 2 million gallon storage reservoir out at the West Treatment Facility. When we put that out for bids, we were still waiting for NDE's comments to come back. That's not uncommon on projects. We're waiting for their comments. In this particular case, the comments came back and there was a change to the tank, resulting in a net increase of $37,986. However, because we're putting the tank in now, we need to consume that change and that cost. But also, as a function of their comments, we've modified the plans for the future plant improvements, and there's about an $81,000 savings that we've been able to take out of that project. So between the two, there's actually a net reduction for us. But in this particular case, since the tank is under construction, it does take there's about a $38,000 change there. Any questions, I'd be able to answer those. And again, Chad is here, and Chad has more detail about that if there's an interest in some more detail around the exact change.
What percent increase is it of the total budget?
I think the tank was right at 3.6. Yeah. 3.69, 3.79. Tank was awarded at 3.3696, so it's about a 1%. Just right at a 1% change.
Chad, can you speak on the changes made to the tank?
Chad Roberts, Water Sewer Director. So the changes that was required by the state was basically the overflow. Currently, we have an underground piping system at the West Water Treatment Plant that takes the existing 2 million gallon tanks overflow and goes out to our lagoon. This is an 18-inch pipe. Well, what their concern was the capacity of those 2 tanks being on that 18-inch pipe. So the recommendation was to go ahead and do a separate penetration on the outside of the tank, and then the overflow will go to a splash pad and just distribute outside of the tank into the yard. So. Anything else?
What would cause an event where you'd have so much overflow where you'd?
Well, there's 2 times a year we fill the tanks and we overflow them, spring and fall. It's a kind of a requirement that we do to keep anything that's been accumulating over time on the top of the tank. And when we have those seasonal changeovers, just like a lake, those tanks will rotate over, and we can get some coliform situations with that. So we always make sure we fill them and overflow them out for a little duration. And we do that with all of our tanks, even the elevated tank out there at Nucor, we do the same thing with, so. Anything else?
Thank you, Chad.
Thanks.
Any public input on this? Okay, if no further discussion, please vote.
All council members present voting in the affirmative, motion carries.
Item 28 would look for a motion to consider approval of an agreement with Bright to provide GTAC body cameras and replacements in car video systems for use by the police division for an amount of $215,435. Do I hear a motion? Motion second. Chief Don Miller, Norfolk Police Division, for some background on this, please.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. This project that is in front of you is something that we've been working on since the end of 2019, beginning of 2020. Norfolk does not have body cameras. We're one of the few agencies that doesn't have body cameras. Back at that time, I worked with our current in-car video vendor to get body cameras. Brought it to the council at that time. After it was approved, there was some challenges with the vendor that made, they raised the prices that made it cost prohibitive for us at that time. The body cameras and the in-car videos work hand in hand with each other. And so I was a little tied where I didn't want to replace our in-car video system that was still under warranty. That warranty is expiring here in a couple months. That made it feasible that this is the right time to reconsider the body camera purchase as well as the in-car video systems. So this is going to be a whole new replacement of those systems, replacing the in-car video, adding body cameras, but with a different vendor than the one that we currently have. We priced 3 different vendors. The vendor, GTAC, had the lowest price, had the quality we were looking for, and has great customer service and warranty service, which is what we need. So we work with them. Like I said, we got prices with all 3 of them. This is a Sourcewell contract item. In addition to having the lowest price, we continue to negotiate with them to lower the price even further to the $215,000 that's on the current bid. This purchase has been something we've been planning for, as I said, so it's going to be purchased with, it was in the capital improvement project budget. It will be paid for with public safety bonds, which have already been issued and sitting in the bank waiting for us to use these. There are some grants out there for body-worn cameras. I get that question all the time. We did look at some grants, but the grants are they're federal grants and they're extremely restrictive and would not allow us to, they have requirements that would not allow us to protect the public's interests like we want to. So we did not go the grant route. So these are purchasing out of the CIP. Of the 3, this is the one that has the quality and stuff that we were looking for. We were very pleased when they also came in as the lowest price. So what questions do you have?
Will this be replacement of cameras for all the current cameras you have now, like you said with the body cameras and the car video systems?
We currently have 10 in-car cameras, and they'll be replacing those with a different system. And this includes the installation and everything. It's a complete system. And then adding body cameras. We don't currently have body cameras. We should. We're one of the few agencies that doesn't have them, but through a variety of circumstances, it hasn't worked out. And this is an opportunity for us to get caught up with the rest of the communities on having body cameras.
Okay.
Now, it's a great thing to protect the officers and to protect the community when things occur.
Would this include any extra backup cameras if one of the body cameras got damaged or any issues with that?
There are at least one in there, but they have like a 2-day turnaround. So if they have a camera go down, they can have a new one within a couple of days. And then if we had to, we just use the camera for one of the officers that's off duty. And so we would never be stuck without a camera. We would have cameras available. Because when they're not being used, they'll be charged and downloading at the station.
Chief, how long will it take to implement these cameras once they're
45
procured?
to 60 days. It's relatively quick.
Okay. And then as policy, each officer would be wearing a body camera anytime he or she's on duty any place, anywhere?
Yeah, it'll be for the uniform patrol. There's, like investigators, they likely won't use the body cameras, but any patrol officers, community service officers will have the body cameras and activate them whenever they're dealing with the public.
Okay.
Chief, is this something we replace after warranty is typically up? Like our cameras are up in the vehicles in a couple months. So we're gonna replace them because the warranty's up, or just the time is right? What's the, I know we talk about body cameras, but
Right.
we're replacing everything.
The cameras we have, the warranty is due here in a couple months. We are having significant problems with them. So if we would try to keep them, we would have a bunch of expense trying to fix them because they're out of warranty. So we will replace all of them, and this will be a 5-year, this is a 5-year warranty with everything. At the end of the 5 years, we'll have to evaluate, are the cameras holding up, and do we try running them longer without a warranty, or do we have to redo? Nowadays, everything's going on that 5-year cycle, and the days of being able to limp things along extra years seem to be fading quickly. So, yeah, this would be a complete replacement of the existing in-car cameras, because they're problems, because they're with a vendor who hasn't been as reliable as we would like them to be. And there's other agencies, State Patrol is a big one who's using this GTAC brand, and they've liked it. So we know it's tried and true. It's not a new company. They've been around for a while. Did that answer your question?
It did,
Okay.
yeah. I think the public would ask if we're, just buying them just because the warranty's up, or if we're having issues and
No,
have to pay for these issues.
we're currently having some in-car videos that are out of service because the parts aren't available in time, and
I think
we're
that's good.
having mechanical issues. They're warranting the parts, but their service isn't what it should be.
I think that's good context to add to another
Thank
reason.
you.
That's what I was asking. And what do we do with the, I guess, old obsolete cameras once we replace them?
The ones that we have, there's not gonna be any value. We have worked with other law enforcement agencies, smaller agencies, where if they would want them to utilize something like that, but even the small agencies have updated cameras nowadays. And so they're pretty obsolete. There's not much of a return value. Because it's a warranty thing, they may take them back. I haven't looked into if they would want them back or not. They likely would just go on a shelf.
Thanks.
Did you have something, Frank?
Yeah, I did notice that about half that cost is just in the monthly plan. The 30,000 and 65,000. Is that for a 5-year term?
Yeah, the total cost is the $215,000, and it's broken down monthly, and that is for the 5-year term.
That is for a 5-year term. And is that similar to the monthly plans that you're using now that require that much?
This is
expense?
more expensive than what we're doing now because we don't have body cameras. And so it's more, but we have this built into our budget, our current budget. We were anticipating this, so it's already part of our budget. Body cameras are a big expense. They take up more data space, it's cloud storage, but it takes up more data because you're running those cameras a lot more than the in-cars. So, the body camera is the biggest part of it. I'm sorry?
Your monthly fees are a lot higher.
Yes. But as I said, we anticipate that, and that's already in the upcoming budget, anticipating these numbers. In fact, yeah.
When it says, Chief, when it says SW maintenance, so there's a maintenance contract with it where they'll take care of the maintenance of the equipment?
If there's a maintenance issue, we send it in and they send us a new one.
Okay, so there's not extra cost there?
There's no cost. The maintenance cost is all included as part of this contract. It's the supplies, the maintenance, and the way it's priced, it's priced for the first year, and then you'll see maintenance contract for years 2, 3, 4, and 5. It's all, but the 215 includes everything for 5 years.
I got just a question here is about this. So with the cost of having body cameras and other cameras, does this lower our insurance costs because of liability of having camera for both the citizen and for our officers?
I have not, it's a good question. I have not seen that question raised before, and I don't have an answer for that.
Okay.
I don't know the answer to that either. I can look into it and get back to you, though, if you'd like.
I think it'd be good to know.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions? Yeah, this discussion's been a long time coming, I think,
It has been.
Chief, and so I think it's good we'll get to implementation, utilization of these body cameras for the best interests of the officers and the community. So, any public input or comment on this? Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Okay. If no further discussion, please vote.
All council members present voting in the affirmative, motion carries.
Item 29, would look for a motion to consider approval to award a bid to Hespe Construction Incorporated for the installation of pickleball courts and sidewalk areas in Libertyville Park in the amount of $356,475.85.
So moved.
Motion second, and Nate Powell, our Parks and Rec Director, for some background on this, please.
Yes, Mayor and Council, so before you, the pickleball court project at Libertyville Park, this is part of the $300,000 donation from Mike Wingate, Tom Sheath, and Brian Adams. Just a reminder that a lot of these big projects, or the vast majority of them, are donations, grants, or partnerships. So we value that, and we're happy that they've stepped up and helped out with this project. We received one bid from Hespe Company Incorporated. The project includes pickleball courts, painting the courts, the fencing. It's the black coated fencing that'll go in, sidewalk access to the courts, and sidewalk access also to the softball field, with ADA access to the parking lot as well, plus concrete pads for the bleachers. The court lights will be part of the utility installation for the bathroom. When we get to that, we're working on those projects simultaneously. So there will be lights for the courts as well. The total project cost is $356,475.86. Our budget was $378,292. So staff recommends awarding the contract to Hespe Company Incorporated. And I should mention also the remaining funds above the $300,000 come from some parking lot funds that we have available to us for that.
Okay, thank you, Nate. Any questions?
How many pickleball courts will you have?
There'll be 4 courts. And the court cost portion of this was $252,353. The rest is in the groundwork and the sidewalk and all that stuff. So, and the landscaping afterwards.
Do you have a site plan, or, I know we talked about a shelter but
Yes.
where they play the softball versus the pickleball?
Yep, we submitted that plan. It's been a while. I'm sure council saw that about a year ago or so. We do have a plan, a layout there with the pickleball courts to the east of the softball field, down first base line, but far enough out of the ball line where you're not going to have softballs flying into the courts. And then a restroom between the courts and the new playground. And so there'll be a restroom there. And we'll be putting a shelter in that area as well. Yep.
A roof cover shelter.
That's correct, yes. Outdoor shelter, yeah.
Okay, anything else?
I would say that this is a good partnership that these individuals brought forward.
Yep. Yep, they also contributed to the playground as well, so, yep.
This is great.
Thank you. Any public input on this? Okay, hearing nothing further, please vote.
All council members present voting in the affirmative, motion carries.
Right, item 30, we look for a motion to consider approval to award a bid to Mueller Sprinklers for the installation of irrigation at Johnson Park in the amount of $127,526.
Okay.
Motion.
I'll make a motion for consideration.
Second.
Motion second. Now, Nate, some background on this, please.
Yep. This project is fully funded by the ARPA grant. It was 100% grant funded for not only for the landscaping and irrigation portion, but also the nature playground. We did advertise for bids for the nature playground and irrigation project on July 15th. But before you is only 3 bids for the irrigation project, since we did not receive any qualified bids for the nature playground. The 3 bids for the irrigation project include Pride Home Services, $160,740, Magnolia Landscapes, $174,000, and Mueller Sprinklers, $127,526. Our 4th bid came from ASPM, but it was not delivered on time, so we were unable to accept that bid. With no bids for the irrigation, for the nature playground, we would like to move forward with the irrigation project at this time. Our next steps for the nature playground, we've reached out to 3 firms, and we do have 3 quotes coming on the way, so that'll help us make a decision on what to do with the next steps. It is a specialty project, so it's difficult to combine. Hindsight, we probably should have separated those 2. So we did budget $325,000 for the nature playground and $300,000 for the irrigation. So we're way under budget on the irrigation project. So in the meantime, staff recommends awarding the contract to Mueller Sprinklers.
Okay, thank you, Nate. Any questions?
Nate, will this be completed yet this fall?
The irrigation, he said he can get started in 2 weeks. So, yep.
Do we foresee issues with the irrigation being put in first before nature playground is installed, or should they go in the same approximate time?
No, because we do have a design for the nature playground, so we can do our work around that project.
Nate, I guess I'm a little concerned when you have 2 bids separating at 14,000, there's a $33,000 difference between this low bid and the next one. You projecting to have any change orders because of something was missed?
I don't anticipate it. We have worked with them, and they did help us out with our Central Park project. We're
Okay.
pleased with their work, and
Okay.
that's all we have to go off of. Yep.
Okay.
Any other questions? What was your mantra before, Nate? Donations, grants, partnerships, another example of that for this project. So again, happy to be able to utilize those resources to enhance our park spaces.
I'm gonna ask one more, Josh.
Sure.
I'm just concerned about putting in sprinklers before any other work might have to be in. So do we have any issues with concrete, sidewalks, anything else that has to be done on site before we do sprinklers?
Everything will be completed in the park before we get started on the irrigation, except the nature playground. And we may have to just use our access area and not install the irrigation until that is complete.
Okay.
And I don't see any problem with Mueller Sprinklers making any adjustments on that at all.
All right.
Yep.
Thank you.
Nate, can you just kind of give us a quick update on how that's going, like, Johnson's Park?
Johnson Park?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just, sorry, bud.
Right now, full completion with all the grading and seeding is September 9th right now, with most everything in the park. The upper part of the park is pretty well complete. We have some electrical work that's going in on the 26th of August that NPP is doing for us for the ice rink area. So that'll be done on the 26th, and then they'll be able to turn that on and test that system. Once that's complete, we can get the basketball court up and running as well. But I anticipate the playground being open and benches and picnic tables in before Labor Day up there. It's not seeded. We're waiting for the irrigation to get in to get that seeded. So it could be muddy if it was to rain or anything. But we're pretty well wrapping up. I don't see any more delays coming. Yep.
Do we know when it will be seated?
As soon as I have a final date for that irrigation, I will give you that answer, but we have to get it done in September.
Yeah,
Yeah.
this year.
Yeah.
That the playground equipment, which is installed and was done by park staff, that, I mean, theoretically could be opened up once those benches and things around it are in place, correct?
Yep, the
Yeah.
amphitheater is what's holding us up. That's gonna be completed on the 26th of this month. Once those supplies are out of that area, we're moving in and putting in the benches and picnic tables and getting that playground open.
Okay, thank you, Nate.
The splash pad too?
The splash pads, I think, is waiting on the electrical end, yeah, which is the 26th.
All right, awesome. Thanks, Nate.
Thank you. Any other comments on this? Public input? If no further discussion, please vote.
All council members present voting in the affirmative, motion carries.
Item 31 would look for a motion to consider ordinance number 5894 to allow all-terrain vehicles, or ATVs, on Norfolk City streets.
I'll offer for consideration ordinance number 5894.
Second.
Motion and second. For some background on this, Chief Don Miller, please.
Mayor and council, again, for a little bit of background, this was first discussed a couple of years ago when we started putting UTVs on the streets. When we first did the UTV ordinance, we were asked to find a safe way to do that. So we worked with our staff and came up with a plan that we were very comfortable with. And we started licensing UTVs we started licensing UTVs. It's been very successful with the restrictions that we put in place. And then that progressed into the golf carts. We identified a good way to do the golf carts, and that has been in place now for a little over a year or so. I don't know for sure. And the normal progression would be to request the all-terrain vehicles. As of Friday, I checked, and we have, let me get my numbers. As of Friday, we have 313 UTVs registered and 9 golf carts. So then the conversation came up about ATVs, and it's been discussed several times over the last few years. Back in March, we had a subcommittee meeting. I don't think it was public safety. We had a subcommittee meeting, and we talked about it, and at that time, I was asked to bring forward to the full council a proposal for ATVs on the streets. And it's been sitting on my desk. I'd work on it, put it away, work on it, and put it away, trying to come up with the safest way possible to come up with a way for all-terrain vehicles. So it's not as simple as it sounds, because we've got state laws that regulate it. We have city ordinances that we're incorporating. And so the ordinance that we put together that's in front of you is a accumulation of our efforts. A couple of the things for ATVs, it's not as easy as just rubber stamping ATVs onto the UTV ordinance, because they are different. UTV is anything from 51 inches wide to 74 inches wide, and an ATV is anything 50 inches or less. So they're narrower, smaller vehicles. And the state statute allows 3 or more wheels. There's no way you could have a safe transportation of a 3-wheeled ATV, though you don't see very many around anymore, but they're very unstable. So we took the 3-wheeled out of the city ordinance, so it's 4 wheels or more. And then a couple other things, they have to have the same lighting and equipment, which is state statute. They have to have headlights and taillights. And then one of the things that we added, which is on page 131 of your packet, is how to handle the safety of them. So on an ATV, you have to, if it doesn't have an enclosed roll bar, then you have to have a helmet. I know last week we took helmets away from motorcycles. People come through town. We don't have any way to regulate that. These are registered in town only, so it's easier for us to have that conversation and regulate. There are ATVs that look like a UTV. Usually they think of a UTV as you sit in it with a steering wheel and a roll cage. They have some trail models that are so narrow, they don't fit the UTV definition, they fit an ATV definition. So they look like an UTV, but they're an ATV. If they have the sitting in there with the seat belts and the roll cage, they don't have to have a helmet. If it's the regular traditional ATV that you would see where you straddle it with handlebars, then they would have to have a helmet. A DOT-approved helmet, whether it's for ATV, motocross, or motorcycle, any of those would be fine as long as it's a safe helmet. And then the driver has to have the helmet, and if they are set up for a passenger, then the passenger has to have a helmet. Again, if it has the roll cage, then they don't have to have the helmets. And that's the differences that we put in there for the ATV and the UTV ordinance. Now, a couple things about ATVs. Take it for what it's worth, but ATVs have been my family vacation for the last 15 years. I currently own 4 ATVs, 1 UTV, and a motorcycle. And I will say that the ATVs are by far the most dangerous vehicle that there is to operate. Because they're so narrow, they have big motors, and some of them have the same motor size as UTVs. You can be going 15 miles an hour, take evasive action, and they're easy to flip. A motorcycle, you take evasive action, you can lean, make quick turns. You can't do that on an ATV. They're either gonna lean or they're gonna tip. So I also discussed this with Tim Rogge at the fire department, and he also has the same concerns. So I'm bringing this to you. If you decide to move forward, we will move forward as we're instructed. But because of the safety concerns for an ATV and the inability to find a safe way to have them operate as low as 15 miles an hour, I'm asking you, and I'm from city staff, both from the police and the fire, we're recommending that you vote this down. But I'll answer any questions you have. We can have that conversation. I'm open for any suggestions or comments.
Can you describe the no helmet for a motorcycle one more time? I guess I'm confused.
Okay, there's the motorcycle helmet law, we took it out of city ordinance last meeting because the state has made it very complicated. We still have a helmet law for motorcycles in Norfolk, but if we have a violation, we just use the state law. People come through town, they may or may not be wearing their helmet, we have to evaluate the circumstances. That's why we just took it out of city ordinance, and we'll use state statute. With the ATV ordinance, they have to license it in city limits, it's only valid in city limits, so it's easier for us to put that requirement on there and manage that without, we're not gonna have people coming from another town on a UTV because their licenses aren't valid anyway. City ordinance can be more restrictive than state statute, it can't be less restrictive. That's why we can go from 4 to 3, and we can require the helmet. There is still a helmet law. There's still a helmet law in Nebraska for motorcycles. We're just using the state law guidelines instead of the city ordinance guidelines. So the helmet law didn't go away in Norfolk. It's just that we won't send it to the city attorney, we'll send it to the county attorney. These violations on ATVs are city ordinance violations that would be prosecuted by the city attorney.
So I guess, I've seen numerous articles of motorcycle accidents and wrecks and deaths in Norfolk. What have we seen with AT or UTVs in Norfolk with, as far as wrecks or issues?
As far as UTVs?
Yeah.
We have had very good luck or success with our UTV ordinance. Part of that is because they have a roll cage, we're requiring seat belts. They're larger vehicles, they're wider vehicles, and they're more stable. Those who have licensed them are given information, and they've been, for the most part, complying. Not all the time, we issue tickets every once in a while for a variety of things, but we haven't had the accident issues. They're a safer vehicle. They're a larger, wider, stable, safer vehicle.
And they're off highways.
And they're off highways.
So I guess, just looking at vehicles on our streets, bicycles seem to be one of our biggest issues. They're hard to see. Rarely do they have any reflective gear. We have golf carts, UTVs. Motorcycles have no helmets. We've seen issues, very big safety issues as well in motorcycles. I guess with the ATVs, I'm just confused of, they're following our mile per hour on on the streets. I'm just confused of what the actual concern is. Is it just the rolls? Is there, because I mean, we've talked in length about this before.
Sure.
I mean, you know,
And
I guess I'm just maybe a little confused on the, you know, bicycles seem to have a lot more issues. And motorcycles have no helmets and they're having issues all the time. So now ATVs, we're putting restrictions on things. We're gonna have continued discussions on scooters, motorized bikes coming up. I guess it's like, where do we wanna put the regulations on these things? So it's kind of
Right, well, you know, I don't want us to have a free-for-all when everybody can do whatever they want, and that's how people get hurt. I am confident an ATV of all of those things is the most dangerous, because they have the ability to go extremely fast, and they can flip at a very low speed, and people get hurt all the time. My son would be dead if it wasn't for a helmet on an ATV. He flipped it, and the helmet saved his life.
Right, the helmet's important,
Helmets are important.
but not on a motorcycle.
I'd say they are important. State law says otherwise, but I can't.
Well, that's kind of where I'm going, I guess, with this is, you know, we're putting restrictions on certain utilities, vehicles, but not all of them. Enforcing some, but not all of them.
Well, the motorcycle helmet law is still in place like it always has been. It's just that, you know, we could have changed our city code to match the state law, and then changed it again, and changed it again. And I anticipate it's gonna change again. So the reason for that is we just took it out of city code. We'll enforce it through the state law, and we'll keep up with the state legislature. Once the dust settles, maybe we'll have that conversation again.
And I agree, they are dangerous. But are they dangerous on a field with holes and different elevation? Are they okay on city streets? That's kind of a different, you know.
Say that again?
If you're on a city street going 30 miles an hour, it's different than being on a field with elevation changes. And with no neighbors watching you and no potential police officers watching you as well, so. I mean, you know, I agree they're dangerous, but they're probably more dangerous on a field.
ATVs are designed for off-road use with their tires and their suspensions. You put them on a hard surface, and the best way I can say is they're squirrely. Because they are having contact with the concrete, a little bit of a turn input has a significant impact on the turning of the ATV. They're designed, I'm getting into complex stuffs.
Yeah.
If you look at the alignment of an ATV, they're towed out. They're designed for off-road use and dirt and giving in the dirt. You put them on hard asphalt, and they don't handle well. UTVs, you don't notice it because they're bigger and they're wider, but they burn up tires really fast. Ask anybody who's driving a UTV in the street, and they're complaining about their tires burning up.
What is the max speed of an ATV, do you know? I don't know.
As far as the capable or speed limit?
I mean, yeah, what can they top out at?
I've seen them over 100 miles an hour.
Wow, that's fast.
Yeah, depending on what type of ATV that you do have. But Chief, what are other communities doing? Is there any other ordinance or
Yeah,
any other
yes.
communities? And what kind of numbers are they seeing for accidents or just
I checked
issues?
we checked with some other communities. Scotts Bluff and Sioux City allow ATVs. The following communities do not: Beatrice, Columbus, Fremont, Grand Island, Hastings, Kearney, and North Platte. They do not allow ATVs or UTVs. Well, the conversation was ATVs. They specifically don't allow ATVs. Columbus is doing UTVs, and Fremont is doing UTVs.
So an ATV would have to have a helmet and abide by the current city speeds on the streets.
30 miles an hour or the speed limits if they're less, which is the same thing as the UTVs.
Chief, for the two communities that you mentioned that are using.
Scotts Bluff and South Sioux City.
Was there any feedback from them as far as issues that they've been having with safety, accidents?
I talked to them and they said that they don't have very many ATVs registered, so they really couldn't even give me a good answer. They have a lot of UTVs, but they don't have a lot of ATVs.
Chief, I do have a question that's more concerned around the insurance side of it. I know they have to show you proof of insurance, but do they have to show you an actual recreational vehicle policy insurance or?
It's required to have an insurance policy with that vehicle listed as insured. As far as the type of
'Cause you-
insurance coverage, it's a liability. You know, we look at the liability, not necessarily, the state law says you have to have X number of dollars of liability. As far as it's a recreational policy or a motor, I've never seen an insurance carrier license that, and anything but a recreational policy, but you'd know better than I would.
Yeah, well, you can do a motorcycle policy, you can do a recreational policy, or you can even add them to your homeowner's policy. So I guess I just would be very specific on the fact, because coverages vary, whether it's medical payments to passengers or underinsured motorist coverage, some of that varies. So I would just be particular on the type of insurance that maybe you require.
And that is from state law. And that is under, not finding it right now.
As long as it matches state law.
Sure,
you know.
yeah, absolutely.
And the other comment I'll have is I read up in the top portion of that, you have to have a turn signal?
We talked about that, and we were requiring them on ATVs, or on UTVs and golf carts. We felt it was appropriate to do it for ATVs. Motorcycles have to have them, and they're a lot narrower than an ATV.
So they would have to be modified to have turn signals on them.
And there's inexpensive kits that
Okay.
people put on them.
Just wanted to clarify that.
There's also expensive kits, but there's also inexpensive kits.
So would these need a harness or a seat belt of any kind?
If they have a rollover, they have to use the equipment that's part of that unit. If it has the rollover cage, they're going to have either a seatbelt or a harness, depends on what the manufacturer is. The ones that you straddle, they don't have seatbelts, obviously.
Right, right.
Those are the ones that would require a helmet. If there's no safety equipment to hold you in, then they would require the helmet because they're gonna get thrown from the vehicle, where the other ones, you'll stay within the vehicle, more than likely.
Thank you.
Chief, how will we govern, I guess, passengers? Because a lot of ATVs don't have a separation as far as the seat, some like motorcycles do. So how are we gonna govern
By
the
definition,
passenger?
an ATV is only one occupant unless it's specifically designed for one passenger. They're called a two-up, and it's very clear. They've got a separate seat in the back that's higher, and you can clearly tell that it's designed for two people. Most ATVs, you rarely, Can-Am has a two-up. Most of them are just a single occupant ATV.
So that rate, basically you would have to have a modified ATV with a double seat in order to have a passenger on there, if you
It
did
has to
not
be
have
factory
that.
designed, not modified.
Not modified, okay.
Has to be factory designed.
So if you saw somebody going on the street with their child sitting on their front lap, that would be a no-no,
That would be a big no-no, which is one of our big concerns.
yeah. But that would all be in, part of the ordinance, though, that they would need to know that they can only, with
Yeah, the
this
driver has to be 18 years old.
when they came and registered,
Yeah, we give them all of the rules
Right.
when they come and get it.
right. And nobody be allowed, it'd be similar to the UTV, ATV, where you're not allowed on major thoroughways,
Correct. State highways.
state highways.
So around here, it's Highway 81, Highway 275, Highway 35.
But you can cross,
You can cross, but you cannot drive on. You
gotcha,
can cross at a 90-degree angle.
okay.
And there's still restricted times you can have these out on the roads, just like the
Sunrise to
UTVs.
sunset. And that's state law.
Right. I mean, there's going to be more and more of these kind of questions coming, I think, with these vehicle changes. We've seen them all, three-wheelers and scooters, and so I guess maybe a policy at some point would be the best way moving forward, handling all of them. But, I mean, just to say that the potential for danger is there. I mean, that potential danger is there for bikes and motorcycles, obviously, as well. So I hate to pick and choose which ones are okay and which ones aren't. So that's just my concern. But
As far as You're right, we have all kinds of one-wheel, two-wheel, all kinds of apparatus surfacing. State law gives the city permission to license these if we choose to. Most of these other apparatus, state law hasn't caught up to them yet, so there is no mechanism for making them legal in a lot of cases because they're this anomaly that doesn't exist. We have the same thing with a lot of UTVs that are being manufactured that are too wide. They don't fit the state's law, state statute, and I've been having a lot of conversations with people about that, and my UTV, the one that I own, is too wide to license. So I couldn't license, I'm not going to, but even if I wanted to, I couldn't license it because it's too wide. And it's factory. So there's a lot of apparatuses and vehicles that are being created that don't fit any of the state laws. And until the state laws catch it up to them, we're kind of in no man's land and we can't license them. We do have a mechanism through state law for the ATVs, which is why we're here.
Well, we could wait for the state forever, but, you
Right,
know,
I agree.
I sit next to a motorcycle every stoplight who has no helmet and a cop right behind me, and nothing's being done. So, I guess putting regulations on these just seems kind of, a little ridiculous when we already have ridiculous, safety concerns with motorcycles. I don't know. I guess it seems like every day you get in your car, your motorcycle, you could be in kind of some kind of form of danger, but I don't know. The motorcycle thing is what baffles me. That's the biggest thing. And bikes on the street baffle me. We passed golf carts and now we can't do an ATV. I guess I'm confused on exactly where that threshold is of safety and.
A golf cart can only go 20 miles an hour.
Right. I get that. But
These
we also
go-
still got a car. A car could go 100 miles an hour.
But by law, the golf carts can go 20 miles an hour. These can go 30 miles an hour. I can take a quick turn on a golf cart and safer than I can on an ATV because they're so narrow.
Look, I don't have an ATV.
What's that?
I don't have an ATV. I'm not going to get on one. I can barely drive my car. But just in general, it just feels like we're picking and choosing what's safe and what's not. And picking what's okay and what's not okay. And we have golf carts, we have bikes in the streets, no
what I can tell
helmets.
you is-
Some no helmets, and then all of a sudden we can't do an ATV. So
Well-
confused. I'm just confused.
If this passes tonight, we can always, if it's a dangerous thing, we can always amend it later.
Sure.
You can't amend it. It's worth giving a shot. We
As
get golf
far
carts
as
and UTVs.
as far as what? A helmet?
Passing this.
Yeah.
If we find out we've had an increase of accidents and everything else, we can change this.
I agree.
That would be my question, is the UTV, ATV, golf cart code, how often does that come up for review? And does that come up for review just by you wanting it to come up for review, or how's that work? When we
What do
set,
you mean?
when we adopt these into place, right?
Right.
So let's just talk about UTVs for now. We adopt that into place. What would be an instance where you would come in before us and say, I want you guys to check out this UTV code and make sure, because we've had an incident, we don't feel we should be doing, or this needs to be adjusted, just like Corey said,
It's usually triggered by an incident.
triggered by an incident, okay. Or is it reviewable every year?
Oh, yeah, well,
Without
we,
incidents.
as far as review, we pay attention, and every time we license a vehicle, we're going through it, and we're saying, yeah, this is a problem, or this isn't a problem. The UTVs and the ATVs is one set of state statutes. The golf carts is a separate set of
Right,
state
right.
statutes. That's why we lump ATVs and UTVs together.
Yeah.
Because the same state law regulates
Right,
them
right.
together.
I would think it'd probably become a concern if all of a sudden, you said you had 313 UTVs registered and 9 golf carts. And the ATVs are kind of in the same situation as the golf cart is in, because you would have to modify your ATV to have the blinkers put on it and to have, it's just one person riding it unless you've got a dual seat factory installed. And so the chances of a guy owning, I'm just saying that, I've got an ATV. My ATV would never, it's not street legal. I'd have to adjust it quite a bit to get it to be street legal for me to want to take it on the road, which I wouldn't want to do because it burned up the tires on it. It's mostly just for going out in the country or, in a sand dune or whatnot. But, so my thought would be, you're probably going to have a limited amount of registered vehicles, ATVs limited, or registered, because just the simple fact that the restrictions to be street legal are kind of tough to come by, because they're not factory produced that way.
Oh, the only thing they really have to add is the flag and the turn signals.
The turn signals, yeah, right. So, and passengers, you can't modify that.
No passengers, yeah.
Right, right.
Chief, you mentioned both police and fire divisions have an official recommendation against this ordinance. Was there, I'm trying to recall the UTV and golf car discussion. Were there such recommendations on those or not? I don't remember that being the case.
We didn't have the resistance to those that we do to this.
Okay.
There was a lot of unknowns, but we didn't say, no, we don't want to do this. We didn't push back.
Yeah.
This one, we both feel it's appropriate as public safety to push back on it and recommend that it not be approved.
I understand. Thank you. Any other questions for Chief?
What about incidences with your current UTVs and golf carts? Have you had any, per se, accidents or injuries of note?
Not that I know of. We've had, violations, but not accidents that I know of.
Speed violations?
I don't know. I know the one I'm thinking, the ones I'm remembering are primarily driving on state highways. We get that quite a bit, is driving on Highway 81 or 275. We don't see 35, we don't have a big stretch of that, but people driving on state highways. Expired tags, driving after dark. That's the ones that are coming to mind, the violations that I'm thinking of. The main ones that I hear about are driving on the state highways.
Okay. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Any public comment on this?
My name is Tim Ernst, and I'm the guilty one that brought up the golf carts to the council, and I'm also the guilty one that brought up the UTVs. And I will guarantee you why there's only a handful of golf carts that are registered is because of the requirement of directional signals and seatbelts. Because none of them come with them, and it's from my understanding, it's a state law. Anything that goes under 19 mile an hour don't need them. Golf cart does not have a roll cage. That bars on the side, all that's for is to hold the lid on, the rain cover and sun cover. That ain't gonna protect you in a wreck, because you can take and just shake it any way you want to. And with the UTVs, nothing comes with directional signals. Nothing comes with, in the golf cart, same way. The brand new ones, if you want to spend $10,000, it'll come with directional signals and stuff, but otherwise, no. And you know what it's going to cost to put that on there? And like Frank said about bicycles, the UTVs, the golf carts got to have a bicycle flag. There's not a damn bicycle in town that's got a flag on it. And if you can see a bicycle, you can surely see a golf cart, or you can surely see a UTV. And I will agree that the ATV is a whole lot more risky on concrete than a side-by-side or a UTV. And they are more dangerous, there's no doubt about it. But if you have to put the directional signals on and all this other good stuff, there ain't nobody gonna license those. Nobody. Because the cost is prohibitive. Because put directional signals on something, to buy the directional signal kit is right at $700. So, that's it.
Anyone else? Public comment? Okay, any further discussion, council? If not, short title, please.
An ordinance of the City of Norfolk, Nebraska to amend Chapter 24, Article 11 of the official city code to allow the operation of four-wheeled all-terrain vehicles on city streets and highways and set forth the provisions under which said all-terrain vehicles may be operated, to provide when this ordinance shall be in full force and effect, and to provide for the publication of this ordinance in pamphlet form.
Okay, please vote.
Voting in the affirmative, McCarthy, Arns, Hildebrand, Clausen, Neurin. Voting in opposition, Granquist, Snorton, and Webb. Ordinance number 5894 carries on first reading only.
Okay, item 32. Look for a motion to consider resolution 2024-48, approving a sidewalk waiver requested by Granville Custom Homes Incorporated, Janet Anderson and David and Cindy Christofferson, for properties located at 2200 North 26th, 2206 through 2218 North 26th Street and Outlot C.
I'll make a motion for consideration.
Second.
Motion and second. For some background on this, Val Grimes, our city planner.
Thank you. So this sidewalk waiver request is for North 25th Street side of lots in the Black Bear area around North 25th and Sheridan. The recorded plat says that there shall be a sidewalk on each side or sides of each lot abutting a platted street. This happens sometimes that lots are through lots, meaning both the front and the rear are abutting streets like this. So the rear is 25th and the front is 26th Street. The process tonight is the option available to those who want to ask to not put in a sidewalk as required by a plat, and the approval must obviously come through commission and council. This waiver was discussed at Planning Commission to have a couple different conditions than the usual. One of the standard conditions is that the waiver is given until there are abutting sidewalks in the neighborhood. There are already abutting sidewalks, and so the reason the commission's recommendation is because of that, due to the North 25th Street is getting ready to go into design phase for reconstruction in probably the next 3 to 5 years. This is why the first two conditions in the waiver that was attached to the agenda are different than the abutting sidewalks as usual, and state specifically the waiver, if given, is for the 25th Street side of lots only, and given for 5 years or until 25th Street is reconstructed, whichever is earlier. That way, there is a time frame on this in case the reconstruction of 25th Street gets paused for some reason. And also another item on how waivers typically work is waivers are given to whoever the property owners are at the time of the waiver request. The approved waiver is filed at the county so that any future owners of the property may find it to understand that they, as the new owners, have a potential to have the waiver expire during their ownership and would potentially have a payment due for the sidewalk that wasn't installed by the builder at the time of construction. As I understand it, if the sidewalk is installed across a property and the city does a reconstruction project at a future time, then the property owner doesn't have to pay to have that 5-foot sidewalk portion put back in, that it's just part of the city project during that reconstruction. And since this is a bit different than the usual sidewalk request, you'll see on the proposed attached resolution, there are a couple fill-in-the-blank lines there, just in case you wanted to add or revise something in the proposed resolution, if there's any questions.
Okay, thank you, Val. Any questions on that?
I guess, Val, I just have to add to you said it's going to be written on the deed.
Yes, this will get filed against the legal descriptions in that resolution.
So is that before or after someone buys the piece of property? Does the new person know before they buy the property?
If they
That's
do a
on the deed.
title search and it's filed, they should find that in the title search that there is this waiver resolution attached to it. So the people, you'll see Granville and there's a couple individual property owners who already have bought that don't have that 25th Street in there. So they will obviously know, and if they sell in a year and this is put in place, then the new people will find that during a title search.
Thank you.
So, Val, I have a question. So these are individual owners now that are coming forward requesting this. Why were the sidewalks
Head
not?
north toward West Prospect Avenue, then turn left onto West Prospect Avenue.
You got plans, Councilman?
So where was I?
At the roundabout.
So my question is, instead of the individual homeowners having to make this request, why wasn't that sidewalk installed by the developer?
The individual ones who were on there tonight, they bought the house before this was accomplished. So the transfer of ownership changed, so that's why they need to be part of this. I mean, if Granville would have come in, I guess, at the beginning before any of them were sold, then it all would have been him asking for it.
Oh, I understand that. I understand why they are here. My question is why, when that final plat was.
I can answer this question for you.
Okay.
Stephen Ronkers, Granville Custom Homes, 4514 Howard Boulevard, Columbus. So when the plat was passed, it was understood that that North 25th was going to be redone in the near term. However, I didn't make the plat, so I think it gets stamped on there, maybe from JEO or somebody. It says kind of some standard language from the city code that says all street frontages shall have sidewalks. Well, this is a road ditch, and it's a double frontage, so it's got 26th Street on one side, and then there's a county road on the other side, an asphalt road that's a road ditch. And so when we built several homes along there, we did not put the sidewalks in. It was my understanding that it was staff's understanding that that was going to be redone. So several of those homes went in without the sidewalks, and their certificates of occupancy were issued. And then about the fifth home we built, they held up the certificate of occupancy. So there was ongoing, prolonged discussion about I think eventually one of the building officials just said that I can't approve a CO without sidewalk because that's the city code. But it was like, well, we all know this is getting redone, so why would we put a sidewalk in only to have it tore back out? Plus it's a road ditch, which would require some different grading, which is also going to change when curb and gutter come along. So I was waiting for city staff to find some other resolution to this other than piecemeal 1-by-1 lots requesting a waiver, but it never came to be. So I just took it upon myself to get waivers for those lots that I still own. And then the one customer that didn't get her CO, her certificate of occupancy, essentially got sewer and water stay in her name until the outstanding, I guess, checklist item gets resolved. So this is the piecemeal way that it's being resolved.
I understand the maybe not wanting to put it in because the reconstruction comes in, but maybe the cost of those sidewalks could be given in reserve to be used for those sidewalks when they actually are installed, when that street gets redone.
Sure, that could be. We didn't charge any more for the projects that had sidewalks in them and the projects that didn't have sidewalks in them, so I didn't add it back into their sale price and then I guess hold it in reserve for some future time. It just didn't go in. And they're aware that the ones that don't have the sidewalk, they can patently see that they don't have a sidewalk there. So I guess I could have charged it back to the project and then withheld it from them, and then could have put it in, had the city come tear it back out, which would seem also not to make a lot of sense. So I guess there'll be a sidewalk when the curb and gutter get installed.
Well, there's sidewalks the rest of the way down there, and
There's
usually-
not.
I think
Where,
there's-
on North 25th, there is a section that does not have sidewalk conjoined with our neighborhood. There's, I mean, I've
But
seen it, there's
yeah,
a run there. that
I'm not
does it.
talking about further down the street, I'm talking adjacent to. And I believe that's the planning commission's terminology, isn't it? Abutting or adjacent to?
Right, that's why we changed that standard first one that said there were already adjacent abutting sidewalks, because there is just to the south of that first single-family house in the Blackberry neighborhood, yes.
I'm just concerned about connecting that street to that sidewalk. I mean, how does somebody, there is no sidewalk there, I guess.
Isn't there?
And you knew
I
it
think
going
there's a
into
gap
it.
up the street too. The lot immediately south of the lot that is Blackberry, I don't think there's a sidewalk there either.
There's a lot of gaps of sidewalks in
Yeah.
town. I'm just talking about next to your property.
Mhm.
When it came in, that plat came in, it had sidewalks in it, correct?
Yes, the sidewalk note is on there
And
that all
obviously,
new
that's why
plats.
we're requesting a waiver.
Correct,
But
yes.
I guess to me, it just seems like that when those houses were put in, it should have had a sidewalk.
They'll be tore out.
And then maybe that's where the funds could be put in towards the new sidewalk. But
Well, it would cost more to tear them out. I mean, you have to tear them out and dispose of them also. So, I don't understand, I guess.
that's fine.
Val, the house across the street, the 2501 Sheridan, is that correct? They don't have sidewalks behind their house there, tying to, on 25th Street side?
The first single-family
Yeah, to the
detached
south.
house. Yes, that was missed. They put it along Sheridan, but it was missed by us that they really should have put that sidewalk in. And it's a very long sidewalk there. It's to the tune of over 200 linear feet down that side that these people will have to put in when 25th Street is reconstructed, yes.
Why are we waiting on 25th Street? Why is that? I mean.
Sorry, what?
That's not even, I know we're talking about it, but just recently, why are we waiting on sidewalks for a project we don't even know what's gonna happen?
Why are we doing a waiver on a project? that-
Why are we waiving sidewalks when we're not even sure a project's gonna happen in the near future?
The 25th Street
Yeah.
reconstruction. That's why it's either 5 years or when it gets reconstructed. I don't know if Steve can give you a better idea of when he thinks this might happen, but that's why we put the either or, whichever one comes earlier.
Yeah, so I guess to answer a little bit of question there. So just to back a little bit up, as Blackberry was being platted, we don't have an option of not requiring sidewalk as a function of that plat. So there was never a conversation during the platting process about not requiring sidewalks. If there was a conversation, the conversation would have been that if you desire not to put sidewalks in there, there's nothing we can do as staff to waive that. That is a council decision to waive any kind of sidewalk that's required as a function of platting. As those houses were being constructed, my recollection is the first two houses got in and got occupancy permits. And it was as those properties got occupancy permits, the question about a sidewalk not being in the back came up subsequent to the occupancy permit. At that time, there was conversation with Steve. He approached city staff requesting waivers on those sidewalks. Again, all of our communication with Granville Custom Homes, Steve Romekers, was that was a property owner function, that we as staff could not waive those sidewalks. That conversation's been bouncing around back and forth now for, I'd say almost 2 years, if I recall correctly. And again, our message to the developer has been consistent, that there was nothing we could do as staff to circumvent that sidewalk requirement. Councilman Arns, to answer your question, we as staff are not suggesting that sidewalk doesn't go in. If that is the desire per code, I think sidewalk should go in. Certainly, we have had conversations with Ramekers, or Mr. Ramekers, that as a function of 25th Street being reconstructed, if sidewalk did go in, per the requirement of code, when we would reconstruct, there would not be any additional charge for sidewalk on the backsides of those properties. We would consume that as a project cost at that time. So that's my history on that conversation. That was helpful.
I guess if I'm purchasing a home back there in that neighborhood, the value of that neighborhood to me is that I can take my family and walk to Skyview. So I would want the sidewalk put there, so.
And there is sidewalk to the south, the first property south of the Blackberry Heights area. Their sidewalk does end, I would say, about 30 feet short of the Blackberry subdivision, so their sidewalk would need to be extended as well.
And there is sidewalk on the front side of these homes. In fact, there's sidewalk on both sides of 26th Street, and there's an 8-foot trail that we also put in along Sheridan. So we're just talking about the section on 25th Street, which one is a road ditch, so the grade probably doesn't conform to the ADA standards if we went to try to build it. And two, I understood that that's going to be, and correct me, Steve, if I'm wrong, was going to be replaced, or I think you're putting an 8-foot trail in there, aren't you? I talked to Nick Hoffman today. Is that accurate?
Yeah, the master plan for our trail system would be an 8-foot trail up 25th Street on the west side.
I'm just saying, see, if I'm walking to the lake, I'm not taking 26th Street, I'm taking 25th Street. That's
Yeah,
what I'm
I
saying.
understand.
Yeah.
Any other questions or
I
comments?
think the problem here we have is the practicality of it, though. When you have a road ditch, like you were saying, the grade already coming down is unpractical for slidewalk because the slope doesn't meet your 1/4 inch per foot side to side minimum or maximum. So you would then have you'd come down like this up, and then you're trying to drain, and you have no curb and gutter to catch water. So now when the water flows off the road and down that hill and through there, while it's draining, it washes right through there and washes out your sidewalk. So it makes it a little unpractical when you have no curb and gutter to put sidewalks in. That is a problem. And then a couple weeks ago, we decided to hire engineer for $340,000 to do a study on that section of 25th to put a turn lane in possibly, and then sidewalks up and down both the east and west side all the way through. So it's almost like you're doing and not saying that would, like you were saying, who knows if that'll ever happen or if it will happen or whatnot. You don't know the cost of that, but the plan will be there in place. So eventually we put in the capital improvement plan to replace that stretch of road. I'm not saying it could be 5 years, could be 10, who knows about how that budget worked, but then you would be tearing out that sidewalk, changing the slope to, at that time, when they get there from lot line to lot line, the city right away all that grading would be changed at that time to accommodate the need of a new future sidewalk, which would then be different than what the grade is there now. So you're kind of, practical side of things, you would see all that tore out. It wouldn't be put back in. I mean, what would be put in would eventually all be tore back out, and then new would put in at that time. So I don't know if it's wise to force a homeowner or a developer to put in sidewalk and then anticipating the fact that in a few years it's gonna be tore out. That's kind of the issue I think you have here in front of you.
Along 25th, if it did get put in the future or changed, 25th got wider and sidewalks trail 8 foot. The homeowners are still required to pay for 5 foot of that 5 foot wide of that lineal footage and behind their house. Am I thinking correctly?
Yes, without looking, I believe for the most part, without looking here, for the most part, I think there is existing sidewalk all the way up the west side of 25th. All the way up to just south of the Blackberry subdivision.
I mean, for these Granville houses that are not, if this would move forward to not put in sidewalks, and obviously it's a requirement of the plat, they would then have to pay for 5-foot width of the lineal footage of their lot.
Yeah, so then we would look to structure a sidewalk district in that area at that time.
I just think it's worth saying that they need to be aware that there is a possible, probable future cost to them.
Correct.
Whether
And
it's
it would be
included
for
in their
that-
house or not,
and it
it's
would
gonna
be so.
come.
Yeah, so if we end up putting an 8-foot trail over there, they would be responsible for a 5-foot of that cost through an assessment.
It's kind of like when the other side of 25th got redone, what, in 10, or somewhere about that time frame. All those people got assessed, that sidewalk that went in. I remember being packed house here of people upset the fact that they had to have trails and stuff like that, and were worried about the fact there were more traffic in front of their home, and it was a
I don't
big deal.
disagree. I just wanted it on record, and I wanted them to understand or know that, just because if it doesn't go in now, there's still a possible cost in the future to them, that it was on their plat, but it's gonna be on it's gonna be on them to pay for it in the future, probably, so.
Val, what was the planning commission recommendation on this?
They did pass it unanimously with this 5 years or 25th Street reconstruction because of kind of what Shane Clausen was talking about, that if this really is going to take place this quickly, then it doesn't really make sense, but they wanted kind of a time frame on that if something gets paused on it, we don't want it just kind of forever to not continue on.
The only
Makes
problem
sense.
with that is then you're doing the same thing only 5 years from now. Because you're gonna force the sidewalk in, and it's gonna change again when you do the road, so it's kinda difficult to, you almost have all your engineering done, and you'd have to know that when they put their sidewalk in, you'd have to put it to the specs that you're gonna require when the road gets changed, whenever that is, because you wouldn't wanna be torn out. And so then would you be asking in to put a trail system at that time? So I mean, there's gonna be a lot of conversation depending on what happens with 25th Street. So they go through turning lane throughout, I don't know how it looks, they're just doing turning lane at a certain point or wherever. But, we don't even have that study in front of us, and yet we're talking about this right now, so.
Well, and the time frame that came out of Planning Commission is because we talked to, Steve Ramus spoke to the Planning Commission, giving an estimated time of 25th Street, so that's kind of where we came up with that.
Yeah. So I would expect 12 to 18 months for design. If there's utilities in there, and there are utilities in there, we could spend anywhere from 6 months to a year doing utility relocations. So I would predict that once utility relocations are done, and getting through a budget process, I would think about 3 years, the project would be ready to move to construction phase.
But you would agree, though, that with CHAF
Yes.
funds, with CHAF funding, things get moved around. Benjamin Avenue was supposed to happen in 2013.
And that's a
You know,
good point, Councilman. So this has come up, all of the points that I'm hearing are valid points. And so I think another option that staff considered was a discussion around paying today's value, and having that in a holding fund, because realistically, a CO shouldn't be issued unless there is a sidewalk in there, correct? And the plat clearly shows, that was drafted 4 years ago, it shows that there were sidewalks contemplated. So we could have a different conversation about, is this something that Mr. Ramaker should pay? What would the cost be in today's value of that 5-foot sidewalk? And that should be assessed to Mr. Ramaker's, instead of looking at the future value and contemplating what the trail would cost, looking at the straightforward, the 5-foot that's contemplated within the plat when it was drafted and signed.
That's fine, but I remember after 25th Street happened, the other side of 25th, and the trail system went in, and the people paid for 5 foot of their, and then there was an 8-foot trail. There was conversation at that time, if you're putting a trail in, do people have to pay to have a trail in front of their home because of the added traffic on your house, on your property. And so there was a lot of discussion at that point in time of if the trail goes in, that's a park situation where is that individual responsible for covering the cost of 5 foot and then maintaining a trail system through town? So then you got so what if that changes in the meantime and now you're sitting here on funds? So you're kind of in a situation where it's really up in the air on what you decide to do here. It's not just black and white where you've got curb and gutter, you've got the right elevation, sidewalk goes in, and you're fine. This is a situation where you're subject to when the project starts, how trail systems look like being funded in the future, and there's a lot of variables there, and so it makes it kind of difficult to, where you put somebody in a situation or homeowners in a situation where there's a lot of variables. Just there are, and so it's kind of difficult to say, because you could say, okay, 5 years, all right, that's fine. And then project doesn't start for 10. And then in 5 years, they put their sidewalks in, those sidewalks come out. You know what that's gonna look like? When you're tearing out sidewalks that people just paid for to put in. And I'm just saying, it could even be less time frame than that. They could put their sidewalk in 5 years and you're tearing them out in 2. So I don't know, it doesn't seem real practical at this point in time. That's how this is kind of laying out.
This is why this has become kind of this drug out process, because it's like all of these considerations and staff doesn't have a tool to just say, we're gonna assess the sidewalks when they go in at some point in the future. So I was had conversations with Steve, like, really, like, we're gonna do one-off waivers? Why can't you just somehow say this is not gonna happen until 25th Street gets redone? And so it became kind of piecemeal, and I was waiting, trying to catch up to it. I didn't, when we built these homes, I didn't go charge everybody another, $1,100 for the sidewalk that didn't go in. We take our price and we calculate what we like to achieve for our benchmark, sell prices and sell them. So if I were going to now go build in some sort of reserve that's going to get held for who knows how many years to be paid back out at some future point, I'd actually also have to go amend, the prices that I charge these folks. They've already got sidewalks like the other homes that were sold in the neighborhood. So it does seem to me it's just a situation at some point in the future, as a practical matter, this is going to get redone. So why would we go through the expense of putting sidewalks in, removing those sidewalks, and then putting sidewalks back in? And as another practical matter, some of those areas don't meet the grading requirements that they're going to want when these future ones come in, and they're not easily graded to the ADA requirements right now. I even have this detention cell. I mean, behind there is a grading nightmare. I mean, I couldn't grade that thing to a sidewalk standard right now. It will need curb and gutter to even be usable. So, I mean, it's just a practical consideration here that there's not would make no sense to put sidewalks in right now. And it's a side matter about the trail is rather interesting, because, we are building an 8-foot trail along Sheridan, and you do wonder, it becomes a maintenance thing. So now somebody's got that much more trail in the front of their house that they've got to go shovel and maintain. So it would almost seem to me that if the city is going to come back in and put an 8-foot wide trail to encourage more use on it, they would just do it as part of their overall project.
Steve, is there a way to put in a sidewalk that would meet city code there?
Yeah, I mean, if they were to go in there and put a 5-foot sidewalk adjacent to the right of way at 2%, there might have to be a little bit of grading in there to make that 2% fit, but I would, to a point. As you go north from Sheridan and get to the bottom of that hill, there's a large drainage structure that goes underneath 25th Street. And so once you reach that last lot just south of that detention cell they have, there's going to have to be, there would be a lot of grading and storm sewer work that would have to be done to get sidewalk to continue north from there. But south of that detention cell, going south and up the hill from the bottom, from where that drainage well comes through. It would be possible to get sidewalk in there at a reasonable expense.
So would we be putting sidewalk in, putting that expense on the homeowner, and then putting another expense on them when we tore it out and make them pay for the 5-foot back?
We wouldn't put a duplicate expense. If they put it in now, they've met their obligation. If we tear it all out in 3 years or 5 years, there's no cost to them.
So with no intention of continuing that sidewalk further south, we can expect how many more sidewalk waivers to come in?
Is Ramekers requesting everything up to the detention cell?
Yes.
Okay. So they're requesting everything up to the south side of that detention cell right now.
Except for the 2 that got skipped, that got their COs before this was noticed. So they are not part of this request. Correct.
I would expect in that case, we'll have to go back and call their sidewalk in.
That'll be tore out. Just saying.
Well-
Just remember that part of it. And it's gonna be tore out at a time when you've got your lawn established, you get your sprinkler heads put in, you've got your grade, everything full. Now you're gonna tear it out, sprinkler heads come up, new lawn, I mean, it's probably best just to wait and get that project completed, whatever date that is. I mean, look at the grade change, the sidewalks on Benjamin, with New Benjamin come in versus those houses. They all had sidewalks. And then when Benjamin came in and got redone, all that grade changed on there and all the new sidewalks came in. They all got tore out. And we don't even know what, I mean, right now, we're hearing that there's plenty of right-of-way there for both sidewalks, trail, turning lane, which I'm not an expert, but it looks a little narrow to me at this point in time. So what does that mean as far as where sidewalks go? Do they end up going on the other side of the property line or on the way we currently do it, on the inside of the property line or the outside of the property line? So there's so many questions and variables out there. I don't know.
Yeah, I think to that end, Shane, I'm going to bring this back to what's in front of us. I think with hindsight being 20/20, some things probably would have been done differently with the plating here, but we have one practical solution that's maybe not perfect for the existing circumstance. Planning Commission looked at it and said, this seems to be reasonable, the 5-year time frame. While I can see your perspective being somewhat problematic, I would hope a future council would look at this reasonably too and say, okay, if the project hasn't been touched, we will consider an extension of the waiver. So all that to say this, we have to land this plane somewhere. And we have a waiver request in front of us. So is there any more discussion on what's in front of us right now?
Would it be problematic to put into this waiver an automatic extension if the city hasn't moved forward with the project on 25th Street? Because now you're talking about another council, I mean, it could be all new people up here. So we're making a decision now.
But you also talked about possibly a finished neighborhood with no sidewalk.
What's that?
You're possibly talking about a finished neighborhood.
I don't know if
with
it's so
no
much
sidewalk.
finished, like you're saying, you've got sidewalk all around your front of the house to the street that you pull in on and then back out. So I'm not saying that you don't have sidewalk to walk. You would have to go through your backyard, hop on that sidewalk, and then take off. So it's not like you don't have sidewalk. You
So
could
jump
walk out
on
your
the east side
driveway,
of-
go down your front sidewalk all the way to the street, come back down and hop on 25th if you wanted to.
But we're talking about the sidewalk on 25th.
Right.
In the waiver, right?
And if you go all the way to the north, there's nobody adjacent, or there's no development, there's nobody
North of
out
his
there
project,
building
you're saying.
sidewalks. So I'm saying there's not gonna be any load of traffic coming from the north on your sidewalk. It's just gonna be you walking out your backyard onto your sidewalk and leaving. So it's like, it's low traffic at this point in time. It's not like it's it's not like a sidewalk you used, or the trail you use in my neighborhood to walk over to Skyview. It's just a low traffic sidewalk. If you wanna grab a wagon with your kids and go, you can go right out for your driveway, hop on your sidewalk, and I'm not sure what the road is at Sheridan. What's the road? Yeah, Sheridan. Come down Sheridan and hop on 25th, but
I don't disagree, Shane. You probably don't have much of a pedestrian load on there. And I don't like the idea of putting it in there and tearing it back out when the street goes in. But I also don't like the idea of setting a precedence where we're waiving something that literally should have been put in when that plan came through. It should have put in, and now we're just saying we don't have to. The fact that there's two individual homeowners here, I do feel for them in the fact that they're now, required to put in a sidewalk. When they bought the house, probably, I realize they probably saw it wasn't there, but I wouldn't want to put that burden on those individuals. But I do think we need to make sure that if a plat comes in with sidewalks, we put sidewalks in.
Well, like in town now, most of our streets have curb and gutter, right? So that curb raises up 6 inches. And then the grade up to your sidewalk changes probably 3.5, maybe 6 inches. And then your sidewalk goes in. So you got automatic flow over your yard, off the top of your sidewalk, out into the street, and that's where your water goes and you water your lawn. With this situation, there's no curb and gutter, and it's a ditch. You're basically putting a sidewalk in a ditch. And that's just the, what?
Just like there is on 20.
Well, a little bit different when you get there because the grade changes, but essentially when you don't have curb and gutter, sidewalks don't make sense. They just don't. It's not a, that's why you see developments not typically have sidewalks where there's no curb and gutter. If you drive around town, any of the roads without curb and gutter typically don't have sidewalk by them, and that's why.
Maybe we should change our ordinance.
Mayor and council,
Right, so
Well,
it
I
wouldn't
think
be,
you're right,
I
Shane,
agree.
but the whole thing is it was on the plat. It should have been taken, not been on the plat when it was originally introduced. It wouldn't be here today.
Mayor and council, I have a suggestion as I'm listening to a lot of discussion here. There's a lot of moving pieces to this. Can I suggest this is tabled until the next council meeting, which gives a couple of weeks, and to have the infrastructure subcommittee look at this? I know nobody likes that idea. We'd like to make a decision, but it seems like there are a lot of pretty big policy implications here. We're talking about trails in front of people's homes and behind people's homes. We have dual frontage. There's just a lot of long-term implications I see in this particular case. So it may be worth giving it a couple of weeks, and we can bring it back to the next council meeting. In the meantime, we can get this on a infrastructure subcommittee to take a closer look at it and come back with some type of direction after that. That would be an idea.
I'll make a motion to table.
Hang on, Justin. Is the developer okay with us tabling this?
I don't think it's gonna resolve my situation. I don't remember back to the conversations on that sidewalk on the plat, but I do remember after the fact when we built, there's actually 3 homes along that street that got built, got COs, and I own one of them still, but then when we got to like actually there's probably 4, and when we got to the 4th one, it was decided that they're not gonna issue a CO, but of course, it's not a life safety thing or a structural thing, so they let the customer move in. I've been paying their sewer and water bill ever since. And again, the conversation with engineering's been like, well, we couldn't fix it on the plat side. We don't really have a global solution for it, so come in piecemeal with waivers, and we're like, that's kind of awkward. We figured it would just become this. And really, you guys can still make a policy change. You can still look at that, because I think it would make some sense to say, in the plating process, where engineering say, well, our hands are tied here, although, of course, why would you put these in? You can continue to do that, but meantime, I'd like to take this sewer and water bill for these, for this current home out of off my name, and put this to rest on my end. I thought this was a pretty simple and recommended solution. I've been at this meeting now for 2.5 hours, and I've been at the Planning Commission one also, and I assume when we all circle back, we're gonna say, yeah, we still should put sidewalks there, because they're gonna get tore out. And I think that those discussions can still be had, but I guess I would ask that you would move forward the recommendation of the Planning Commission regarding these particular waivers tonight.
You want us to vote?
I would like you to vote.
I just want to add my biggest concern on the whole thing, and I have no problem holding off, and approving a waiver necessarily. But the cost of putting in a sidewalk today compared to 5, 10, 15, 20 years is going to be a hell of a big difference. And so I'm bringing it up again of these homeowners that bought a house, that saw it on a plat, know they have to put it in, could be paying a hefty price tag in 5, 10, 15, 20 years. And if that's the way we go, that's fine. I don't necessarily mind the idea of having a holding pot like was brought up, but I don't know that that's right for the city to hold it either. But I think if I was a homeowner, I would be planning accordingly. So.
I guess, Andy, I would ask, given your recommendation, are you concerned about vote here tonight, an affirmative vote, setting a precedent that you see presents problems in the future?
I guess my main concern would be granting a waiver is basically we don't know when or if the sidewalks will get in on that corridor, nor do we know who would pay for it and who's liable for that. And so I think, and we've also got questions about if it's a trail. Obviously, the plat did not reflect a trail, I assume, or did it? Did it reflect an 8-foot trail, Steve, or was it a 5-foot standard sidewalk on the plat?
The plat reflects, I believe the plat reflects an
Yeah.
8-foot trail.
It was an 8-foot trail.
It talked in the subdivision about the 8-foot trail on
Yes.
Sheridan.
That's correct.
But our standard code for every plat says a 5-foot sidewalk against a budding street. So that is all that the plat
So-
ever requires.
So
Yeah.
the plat, and then when the lots were sold and marketed, was not marketed that it was near a trail. So I think that ties into what Councilman Clausen is saying about now you're on a trail and there's maintenance with that. So I understand from where the developer's sitting, this is really just a black and white issue, a waiver or no waiver, because we're going to tear the sidewalks out, so why do it now? But I think, too, from a city standpoint, there's a lot of implications here, as I'm hearing it, on how we handle these things going forward. So that would be my concern, is the broader conversation we have on how we're going to handle this. Because, granting, if we're okay with that, granting a waiver or not granting a waiver, it does buy 5 years, but then, as Councilman Grandquist indicated, that cost is going to go up. We don't know what that is. And I think Danny was mentioning here at the beginning of this item, what I think was more of a fee in lieu of assessment model, right? I mean, we develop a fee, we do that now, it's paid, you're wiped clean, you're done. So if the city comes in 5 years, 10 years, whatever that is, from now on, you're done. You're not obligated anymore for that. You've already paid that under that arrangement. I think giving a couple of weeks at least to talk about that and how we could make that work would be worth it. Or if we want to vote, we can vote. That's up to you guys.
I'm going to make a motion for tabling resolution 2024-48.
Second that.
Okay, motion to table and a second with, which ceases further discussion. So on the motion to table, I'd ask for your vote.
Voting in the affirmative, McCarthy, Granquist, Arns, Snorton, Webb, Clausen, Murin. Voting in opposition, Hildebrand. Resolution 2024-48 is laid on the table.
Okay, with that, this meeting of the Norfolk City Council is concluded and we are adjourned.